Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Million Dollar Business Podcast. This is episode number 6. I'm your host, Stefan Montgomery. This is a special episode. Let me tell you why this is a special episode. We have with us today the president and CEO of COMTO, the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, and a good friend of mine, April Rai. April, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mr. Montgomery. I'm so excited to be here. This is the hottest ticket.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I got to tell you, this is special to me, and I'm talking to the audience. April knows this, why it's special to me. I've been a member of COMTO for over 20 years, and to interview the president is very special. And I want to say hello to my brothers and sisters from the COMTO chapters. How many chapters we got now, April? 37?
40, sir. 40
What?
chapters across North America. Yes, North Carolina is our newest. We had Memphis join us last year. St. Louis was reignited. We had Hawaii join us. We're at 40.
Wow.
I know.
We're going to have some conference in Houston this year. Wow.
Yes. So
sure
exciting. So exciting. And it's funny because whenever you come to events and I shout out the chapters, you raise your hand at least 7 times because you've been in so many chapters of over the years. It's amazing.
Yeah. I people tease me about that. They go, "Where you going next, Steph?"
Right.
I'm staying here in Houston, but I'm a COMTO member for life. They should have we should have a chapter membership at large or something like that.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
That should have multiple chapters. You're just a member of all the chapters.
Yeah,
sure.
I just cover every chapter.
Yep.
So listen, what I want to do is I'm going to do like a brief bio of you.
Okay.
But I'm going to let you really talk about yourself because you've been such a powerhouse since you came in on the scene. I want everybody to understand where you came from. This just didn't happen overnight. Where
Absolutely.
You came from. So you came with us in COMTO in December of 2021.
Yes.
Prior to that, you were with WTS, the Deputy Executive Director.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, you were at the National Organization for Youth Safety.
Correct.
And then I see here you were the manager, Office of Dean, the University of Maryland School of Nursing.
Yes, that was a phenomenal opportunity. I managed government affairs for the University of Maryland School of Nursing in the dean's office. And what a phenomenal experience to be able to advocate for the health of people in disadvantaged communities, because that was in Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
So that was
more. Okay.
Yeah. So that was really the intersection for when I started to really focus my career on equity and the intersection of health and transportation. So I have a little bit of a public health background with that as well. Okay,
good. So now, as I previously mentioned, I've been a member of this organization for two decades. This is a great organization. Our last conference in LA was a resounding success, the largest gathering of our national conference ever in 2023. But coming up here in the great state of Texas, my backyard, Houston, July 9th through the 12th, we will be having another conference. And we want to talk about that a little on the podcast today because we want to encourage everybody to come out. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned before, April joined our organization in December of 2021. And I got to tell you, she's been making significant strides ever since. I want to delve into your leadership style, how you got here, and why would somebody want to be a COMTO member? What's the trajectory of the organization? And, since you've been making waves and doing things, we want to expose who you are to people and the organization. So just talk about just a little bit. I read a little bit of your background. And
sure.
How did you get here? How did you become the president and CEO of this organization? I want to understand that.
It's a wild ride, I'll tell you that. And, sometimes when I talk about my background, I show this picture, and the picture has 2 roads on it. One is a unobstructed, clear highway with bright sunshine, straight and narrow. The other road is a windy mountain road that's leading upward. That's my career. It's a winding mountain road. That's what
Okay.
leads upward.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, every single leader I've ever spoken to has the windy mountain road as their career trajectory.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
not a straight, unobstructed highway,
Oh, yeah.
but that's what we thought it would be when we were first starting out. Like, oh, there's endless, there'll be no bumps, there'll be no twists or turns. Well, there's always twists and turns in a career that leads to leadership. So, funny enough, I actually was born and raised in San Diego, California. And when I tell people that, they say, ooh, that's so wonderful. It must have been amazing. And it was a beautiful, sunny, amazing place to grow up. But the neighborhood that I grew up in was actually the poorest of all of San Diego County. And so I grew up in an economically disadvantaged neighborhood right along the trolley line. That's what we call our light rail system, the trolley. I grew up right along the trolley. And we had one working car in my household that was constantly broke down. So we always took public transportation to be able to get to where we needed to go, to work, to school, to live, to love, all of it. We took public transportation. So it's been a part of my life since my earliest memories. And my mother actually worked for Caltrans, and she worked in the Disability and Evaluations Department. So she would bring me to Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. And I would be able to see how all these amazing professionals would make accommodations for people with disabilities and help people live their lives and be active. And it really affected me. So when I finished high school, my mom said, hey, this is the best advice I have for you. Get a good state job. Get a good state job. You're going to get good benefits. That was her best advice to me. And so I did that. When I finished high school, I actually had taken American Sign Language as my foreign language and did really well. And I became a sign language interpreter. That was my first job for the state of California. I still know it. I still know it today. If I wasn't using my phone to, hold my cell phone, I would show you some things. Absolutely. Yes, I still speak it today. And so I became a sign language interpreter for the state of California. And it was an amazing experience to be able to support the deaf community, take them around to their appointments and help them to communicate effectively. But you get that itch when you're young and you think, could I do more? Is there something else that I could do? And so I had this huge opportunity, first big twist and turn, to move to Washington, D.C. And that was over 20 years ago. And I was able to learn how the sausage is made in DC in the political scene, understanding government affairs and that sort of thing. And that's really where I learned about transportation issues, economic issues, energy and the environment. And I ended up doing that for close to 8 years, doing government affairs in Washington, DC. So that's when I took the move to the University of Maryland and led their government affairs. And that really brought me into health equity, which, transportation has a large part in that. And that's when my career trajectory changed. And I made my focus health equity, which includes transportation, because that's how we live. That's how we love. That's how we get to opportunity. Transportation is the great connector. And that was also the theme of our conference last year, which was phenomenal on the West Coast, that transportation should be the great connector. So it's been a twisty, windy road, but I landed here at COMTO, and I almost had imposter syndrome when I was contacted to think about applying for this role. I thought, me? Really? You want me to be the president and CEO of this illustrious organization with 50-year history? Me? And they said, yes, we want you to apply. So I applied. I had a wonderful several rounds of interviews with the board, and I've been here since December, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, since you've come in, you've taken the bull by the horn, done an amazing job. We don't always agree, you know that, but me and you have had some difficult discussions, right?
We have, and it's appreciated because it comes from a perspective of someone who's been a member of the organization for a long time. And any organization that's been around that long, well, you have your good days and your bad days, you have your ebbs and your flows. And you have fundamental change that has to take place. And the change comes from listening to your members. I appreciate the feedback. And we don't always agree, or I can't always do what I'm being suggested to do quite yet. But I always take it in mind, and we've been able to move forward. And I really do consider you a great friend. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I'm one of those people, I'm from New York, and I can't hold my mouth.
Yourself.
I can't help myself. Sometimes I say things, I shouldn't have said that.
It's okay. We understand.
Being in COMTO has been a privilege for me, and it really has helped me in my career. I wouldn't be where I am without COMTO. I know that.
Wow.
I would.
That's huge. That is huge.
I can tell you stories upon stories about how I got to where I am because of other COMTO members, because of my network and networking. And that's what we talk on this podcast. We talk about the importance of networking, especially when it comes to small business and getting contracts. So I understand the power. That's why I call this episode The Power of COMTO, because COMTO has so much power. And I think that people overlook us sometimes and don't see where the power really comes from. But one thing I want to congratulate you on, and I'm gonna kind of toot your horn a little bit. When we were down, I forget where I was, but went to look at the office. I forget what event. I'm always going to some event. And
yes, that was our Congressional Black Caucus event last year in
that's what I was down there for.
September.
Yes, that's right. April, those offices, I almost cried.
Thank you. We're so excited to move into our new space. That's in Arlington, Virginia. We're very proud of that.
Those offices represent who we are. So when you have to bring in, you're in DC, so when you got to bring in and have meetings and, I understand the old offices we had, I get it. But we are a different organization. So
we have to elevate.
Yes. And I got to say, I like your staff. I really like your staff.
Thank you.
They do a good job.
And I'll tell you what, any organization like COMTO that sits in the nonprofit world, association world, the fact is we don't sit at the highest place in the marketplace when it comes to recruiting and retention. It's not easy to find good people. You got to want to do the work. You have to connect to the mission. So I'm so appreciative when I can find wonderful people to join this organization and bring all their skill set and their passion to it, because they could make money other places. Right. And I really, really appreciate the folks who connect to the mission and bring their best to the organization. I really do.
Yeah. And it goes to your leadership, because people follow people, right? And they're following you and doing the mission because of who you are as a leader. So I want to congratulate you and your staff. You do an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now that we got that out the way, I want you to explain to my audience, if I'm listening for the first time, okay, yes, Stefan, you're talking about this organization, but who is COMTO? What is COMTO?
I love it. So, funny enough, who is COMTO? Secretary Buttigieg called us the voice of equity in transportation. He said it. I didn't say it. He called us.
Let's back up again, because everybody don't know who Secretary Buttigieg is. Everybody doesn't know. So could you just back up just a little bit and explain who he is?
100%. Secretary Pete Buttigieg is the Secretary of Transportation for the U.S. Department of Transportation. So he is the top official in the transportation industry who runs the U.S. DOT.
Okay.
So this is a political appointed position, presidential appointed position, and this individual called COMTO the voice for equity in transportation. Now, this was phenomenal because he was addressing our board and our leadership early on in his tenure. And during this address, he says, I consider COMTO to be the voice of equity in transportation. I was like, now that's what I call a soundbite. So I've been saying that now since then. And that was in 2020. So I think that it's such an apt description, because we are the voice for the marginalized. And that word minority in Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, it's all of those who are underrepresented in leadership. And that includes women, persons of color, persons with disabilities, veterans. These are all minorities who don't have the loudest voice in leadership in the industry. That's who we are. And so when you think about what that means, it means servicing our community. And isn't that what it's all about?
Yes, it is.
It's all about the people that we serve. And our communities are made up of lots of different people. It's kind of like this map behind me. It has all these different colors. And that's what our communities look like. It's vast. And so when we think about making decisions, wouldn't it be prudent to have members of those differences present in leadership? That just makes business sense. And, data shows the same thing. Those with diverse people at the decision-making table make better choices. They're more profitable. All the arrows are pointing to yes. And that's what COMTO embodies for the transportation and infrastructure industry. So we advocate for best practices. We make sure that businesses that are owned and operated by persons who are women, minorities, veterans, persons with disabilities, that they get their fair share of
Right.
contracting opportunities, because doesn't that make sense that those who are from the community would be strengthened by opportunities that come to that community, which really makes for a stronger society,
Right.
because those business owners are supporting families who are a part of the community. It all makes sense and it all strings together.
Yeah.
So not only for the individual, making sure that individual members of our community have upward growth and trajectory within the industry, but also that our agencies and our private members who are members of COMTO, that they know how to treat their people well and they know how to treat the communities well. So when they have these large scale projects, we're all served well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that asked me this question because it was I was going to ask this question later on, but since we're talking about this particular subject, I think it's only appropriate, with everything that's going on with DEI and affirmative action. And, I know you're in Washington, you go to meetings, you participate in events. It's been a lot of recent challenges. How do you think that COMTO and its members and the businesses, what's your take on where this is going? I know you don't have a glass, glass
A
was it?
looking glass to,
Yeah,
to
yeah, to
know the
see,
future.
but you were there at the landscape, and I want the listeners to listen to really understand the importance of some of these things that are happening now and what the impacts they can have on your businesses, on schooling, on education. Like, I don't think everybody fully understands where this may go, especially
100%.
get a change in leadership at the presidential level.
Yeah, and so what anybody who's been around DEI for any amount of time knows that this topic falls in and out of favor.
That's right.
This is how it's been, right? We're about to celebrate the 60-year anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 this year. And look at where we've come. Now, there have been a lot of strides, but we have a long way to go.
That's right.
And we're at a point in time now where last year we saw diversity programs being attacked and dismantled, starting at the educational level. Then the federal government was sued. We saw private companies be sued for their diversity programs, and even state agencies be sued for their set-aside programs that give a set-aside amount of percentage of funding to support businesses who are providing professional services for state contracts. So it's not like money is being given away and it's a charity. These businesses are providing a very important service,
That's
and
right.
they happen to be owned by minorities, women, persons of color, veterans, people with disabilities. And those programs were being attacked, saying that they were unconstitutional. The fact is, it's really sad. It's sad that in the end, we've forgotten who we are serving. We serve the community, and the people who make up those communities include those who are marginalized.
That's right.
So when we don't have programs like this, then it means we're saying everybody gets a fair shake, but that simply isn't the truth.
No,
That
it's
simply
not.
isn't, it's
No, it's
simply
not.
not what happens.
No, it's not.
So it's a critical impasse that we're at. And an organization like COMTO has the ability to advocate and say what others can't say. We can say this is critically important. We can make the business case for supporting small businesses and supporting minorities across this industry. And that's what we do. And we throw the facts at them. We tell them what the science says. The science says that teams that are diverse are 85% more profitable than those who aren't.
That's right.
Don't you want to be more profitable? Then you
Right.
better think about making sure that your community is represented in leadership. And we realize that community means something different in every region. If you're talking about South Dakota, then you're talking about a large Native population.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're talking about South Central Los Angeles, then you're talking about a large Latino population or a large African American population. So we understand that the term community really is regionally based, but still we should be considering the makeup of those communities in the work that we do and in our decision making. So that's what COMTO is all about. We bring those people to the table. We show you what's working. We show you how organizations and agencies have navigated very, very tricky political platforms and red tape and all the different people, constituents that you have to be responsible to and for. We show you how they've been able to navigate it successfully, all with an equity lens. So I feel like COMTO is more relevant today than it's ever been.
Yeah, I would say that we need COMTO to advocate for that. We need COMTO and WTS and APTA, all these organizations to advocate for us, the small business community, for people that have been marginalized. It's very, very important because the equity gap, especially when it comes to minorities and women and others, is so vast,
It
so,
is.
so vast.
It is.
And so that's one of the reasons, and I don't know if I ever told you, it's one of the reasons I started my business is
Oh.
because when I was the president of COMTO out in LA, I saw the equity gap. I saw how people were not using small businesses the way they should be. And so that's why I devised what I did to help small businesses. I wanted to give back. So it's almost like a service. You know, I make a couple dollars along the way. I'm not gonna lie, but
Right, right.
but
You have to
you know,
survive.
I gotta survive. I got people like Kyla and others that they gotta get paid. So you gotta make
That's
a couple.
right.
I gotta make a couple
You want to
dollars.
keep Kyla. You want to keep Kyla.
We
You got to
want to
pay
keep
her.
her, right?
Okay.
Right. We want to keep her. So we got to make sure we get paid. But I really are in this for helping people and helping small business and getting them on projects prior to the release of RFP, getting them associated with people, getting them to know COMTOs and APTAs and things like that, because it's about networking. I mean, really, that's what business is. It's about networking. It's who you know. It's not how many degrees you got. It has nothing to do with that.
100%. It's so funny. I was just speaking with Deborah Johnson, who is the CEO of RTD in Denver, and she was talking about the people power problem. And it's about being able to recruit and retain, the highly skilled workforce in our industry. This is the time. Now is the time. We have a once in a generation investment in transportation in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
Right.
And these are trillions with a T, trillions of dollars that have been poured into infrastructure projects across the US.
Right.
If not now, when?
Right.
When?
Right. Exactly.
So that's why the theme of our conference in Houston is transportation equity, meeting the moment. We're at a moment, and we really need to make sure that we're getting the most out of it so that our communities, and it's all back to communities, can be benefited. And one of our board of directors, Dr. Lester Woods out of Missouri, he said something to me that was so profound. He said, April, community is the new currency. Community is the new currency, right? I
Yeah.
love that, because if you're anybody who has to report to a constituency, you might want to think about that. Your community is the new currency. How are you serving those people? How are you making sure that they're taken care of with your leadership at the helm? It's really, really important. So while there may be a tax on diversity and there may be a tax on these programs, in the end, the community you serve, they have a lot of power, and we better make sure we're serving them well.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. Now, April, you just mentioned something before, and I'm going to go there. Houston, let's talk about this conference. Let's talk about what's going on with this conference. Tell my audience why they should come to the conference. What's going on? Why should I come to hot Houston on July 9th through the 12th to come to this conference?
Well, first of all, Stefan Montgomery is going to be there in full force, but
okay.
We are.
I'll take that.
This is a premier gathering of the who's who in transportation. These are CEOs, these are decision makers, these are business owners, these are state DOT CEOs. These are the top movers and shakers in the transportation and infrastructure industries. And they're also equity champions. So what a phenomenal mix. These aren't just leaders of major agencies, but they all care a lot about the communities we serve and making sure that equitable decision making is in place. So it's called a national meeting and training conference on purpose. It's not just that it's a really fun party, but it's also that you're going to learn something. You're going to be able to understand what are the best practices, what's working, what are the things that are worthy of duplication that are happening out there, whether you're a private firm or you're a state DOT or you're a small business, what's working out there when it comes to procurement diversity or when it comes to projects being performed well. How do we integrate technology and innovations? What are those innovations and advances happening? And how can they be a part of my work? So it's really a who's who of anybody who's in a decision-making position in the industry, but it's also about understanding the trends that are here now and those that are on the horizon so that you can be well educated and perform your work well.
So what surprises you got this year? Because last year you had some surprises. You got anything you want to let us know? I mean, last year we got a little yo-yo at the end. That was a lot of fun. And so those people listening, Yo-Yo is a rapper, a very famous rapper from LA. She came in. She was the master of ceremonies
Yes,
and
mistress of ceremonies for
mistress
our
of
industry
ceremonies.
awards. Yes,
Yeah,
she was.
for the award ceremony, she did a great job. It was great to see her. And so that was a little for us old school heads. That was kind of
That
nice.
was pretty cool, right? We also had Van Lathan for the young heads. We had Van
That's right.
Lathan as our keynote speaker, and many of them know him for his activism. So it was really exciting. And I won't give away too much, but
Okay.
I will say that I may or may not have mentioned someone who made a statement about us earlier in this podcast, and that person may be our keynote this year.
Oh,
So I'm just going to leave that
okay.
there, and
Okay.
we will see.
Okay.
But it's definitely one that you will not want to miss. I hear
Okay.
that Houston says we're going to bring it and we're going to showcase everything amazing about Texas. And it's going to be multimodal from NASA to highways and streets to ports and airplanes and everything in between. So I love the fact that COMTO is multimodal and multidisciplinary. So whether you're a social media guru or you are, a bridge designer or an engineer or a CEO, there's something in it for you.
Yeah, and it's a good time. It's a good learning lesson. I always encourage young people to come to the conference,
Please.
especially people of color, because it's important to see how many professionals you are around that are just like you. Because sometimes when
100%.
you work in an agency, it might be a few of you guys, people of color, women. You go to a conference, you go, whoa,
You're
wow,
like, wow, I
wow.
didn't even realize. I didn't
I
even
didn't
realize.
realize, right, right.
Yeah,
So yeah, and that's what it does for you. I always say that when you go to conferences, it reinvigorates your determination and in your perspective on your career. You come back fired
absolutely.
up. So I always tell people you should come and join us. So a couple more questions I'm going to ask you, and what what challenges do you see Compto facing for the future? What challenges? Because I know it's not easy. Nonprofits. I had a short stint as running a nonprofit one time, and it's not easy to raise money and to get the right staff. So, what would you say as the leader of organizations such as this? What are some of the challenges that you are trying to overcome, or you would like to see overcome?
I love that. So I know if I were to ask the CEOs who are our members and their agencies, what are the things that keep them up at night? They always tell me it's recruiting and retention is the top thing that keeps them up at night.
Okay.
Being able to attract and retain good people to do work in their industry. And for Comto, that is a concern. It's not the top concern for us because we were talking earlier about our position in the marketplace. And as a
Sure.
nonprofit, we're never going to be at the top. So being able to keep great people to help move this mission forward is always something that's important. We try to attract them and keep them for as long as we can. But the top thing that keeps me up at night is how can I continue to do great work, not off the backs of our members, but to support them. And so it's really about diversification of revenue streams for me. That's the thing that I am trying to do. And that is trying to utilize the 53 years of experience that COMTO has in seeing what right looks like, what works across regions, and applying that to state DOTs and big transportation agencies and private firms who need that expertise. How can we become advisors to support them with that experience so that our revenue streams are diversified and we're not pining off the backs of members to join or pay a fee or something else for us to be successful? So to me, that is going to help us be propelled into the future. We are a membership organization, so membership is a big part of how we're able to keep moving the mission forward. But I want to make sure that's not the only way. So I've been really excited about a new partnership that we've had with AASHTO, the American Association of State Highway Officials,
Okay.
since 2021. And we've partnered with them to run their Center for Environmental Excellence. And that is an FHWA funded or USDOT funded program that helps state DOTs operate efficiently. How do they treat their people well? How do they show up in communities in a way that's not disruptive? We help them manage the equity components of that center. And that's been such an amazing partnership because we've been able to really be advisors and advocates in the state DOT world, utilizing all of COMTO's experience from all these years. So it's another revenue stream that allows us to expand upon our operations and our work that's not even involved with membership. It's really about us utilizing our expertise and applying it in a way that can benefit communities. So that's really the thing that I'm focused on, is making sure that we utilize our expertise and we don't put it under a basket, but we let the light shine on it and make sure
Okay.
that others can benefit from it.
So with that being said, letting the light shine, we named this podcast, There is Power in COMTO.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell me, I know what it is, you know what it is, but let's let our listeners and the people that are watching this podcast know, what is the power of COMTO?
The power of COMTO is being a part of an exclusive network of people who really care about equity. They really care about everybody not just getting the same thing, but getting what they need to thrive, not just survive in this world. So when we talk about transportation being the great connector,
Right.
whether that's through business opportunities or individual people getting where they need to go to access life, that's what we're here to make sure happens. And it doesn't just happen automatically. We must be intentional about that. That's the power of COMTO. We make sure that transportation serves everyone and gives everyone what they need, whether as an employee or a commuter or a decision maker. Transportation is going to serve you well. That's what COMTO ensures takes place.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And I know me and others are really have benefited from this organization. But once again, I'm going to say this to some of the members out there. You get in what you put in.
100%.
Right? So
100%.
if you say, well, I'm a member of COMTO, but I'm not getting anything, well, what are you putting in?
100%.
Right? If you don't put in anything, you can't get nothing out. So that means that you got to be part of some of the committees, the local committees, because local chapters need help, right?
100%.
As a former president, I'm telling you, local chapters need help. They can use the help, right? Because it falls upon the president and the board. There are committees at the national level. Get involved in those committees. That's where the power comes from. Because when you get involved, you meet people.
100%.
And now you're networking. Now you're talking to CEOs that you normally would not even get to talk to.
And maybe your next employer. Who knows?
That's right. That's right.
And you're exactly right. There is almost a self-service to being a part of this network that is so critical to understand. There's so many opportunities, so many chances for you to network, have professional development, be involved in real change when you're a part of the chapters at the regional level and then also at the national level. But you've got to make yourself available, right? And you got to show up. Then once you show up, you can show out. And that's what we did last year in Los Angeles. But the fact is, there's a ton of opportunity and you can't know about it unless you're there. I'm not sure if anybody saw Hamilton, but you've got to be in the room where it happens.
Right.
And where it happens is in our chapters, in our events. You have to be at the conference to be able to see it. We can try to tell you about it and how amazing the spirit is, but unless you're in the room, you won't get it.
No, you don't get it. You really just don't get it. You have to be in the room, and it works at the regional and also at the national level.
100%.
So April, we know you're a busy lady, and I appreciate you being on the podcast. Any words of wisdom that you want to give our listeners about COMTO, about the direction you're heading, just anything you want to highlight, because this podcast is about COMTO and the benefits and what you would glean as a member. I know what I'm about to say. We have a low payment for membership, and I will tell you honestly. And other COMTO members, you can yell at me when you see me at the conference. I'm okay with this. It's the value add. You're getting a deal.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a deal. I belong to some organizations. I pay $600, $700, and $800. One organization I belong to, I pay $1,500 a year to belong. Very powerful organization. So for that membership fee of $125, I don't know where you're getting a deal from. That is a deal of the century. And I know me and you have talked about it before, about
We have.
increasing. I
We
know
have.
members of the board might be selecting me out and calling me up later, but I said it. April didn't say it. Stefan said it, right? We need to raise our membership dues. I truly believe that. The value is there. So besides that, April, I said it. You didn't say
Thank
it.
you. Hey, thank you for saying it. That's amazing.
Yeah,
And, I always want to be comprehensive whenever we make decisions that are of a financial impact, specifically to our members. And the fact is, we just came out of a global pandemic. I understand that. It was a really difficult time for lots of people, and that's not lost on us. However, we do realize that we're going to show improve. So, in the time that I've been here, I've been working to show improve, to
right,
continue to show the value of the organization, how we're elevating, how we celebrate, and how we bring value to the industry and to individuals who choose to be a part of it. And I feel so fortunate to be a part of an organization with such a rich legacy. We talked about Julie Cunningham before we started our call, who was our previous CEO who sadly passed of cancer. She was a powerhouse. She
oh,
made real
oh,
change. She
oh,
was somebody who was in the White House saying what needed to be said. She was at the US Department of Transportation saying what needed to be said, creating new programs, creating new opportunities, advocating for individuals to get leadership roles. And it's because of much of her work that has allowed COMTO to continue to be the powerhouse it is today. So I stand on the shoulders of giants. And
yes,
my goal is to continue their work so that we're around for another 53 years. And if you want to be along for the ride, you're in for a treat. It's going to be fun. And you just have to show up to see it.
yeah,
So our goal is we want to make equity business as usual, not a one-off,
right,
business as usual. And
right,
together we're going to do it.
right. And I would direct everybody to the COMTO National website. It'll also show how this organization got started, and on
Mhm.
the gentleman's back that it's got started. It's a rich history of 50 years,
Mhm.
and I would point you to that. So, April, now that you have survived the $1 Million Business Podcast, it ain't that bad. People come on here, I don't know what he gonna ask. He from New York. He might come up with anything. Now that you survived it, what we'd like to ask you is this: who would you recommend we have on the podcast that could make an impact? Who would you recommend?
That is a really good question. You know who I just had? I was on a panel with Janine Uzel, the CEO of NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. And let me tell you, somebody who is powerful and has a rich history in her career is Janine. I would really recommend that you have her on this podcast. She has so many amazing insights from a global perspective
Okay,
about what minorities have dealt with, what the future looks like, and some of our current challenges as you talk about minorities operating in an environment where they are still a minority in engineering. Phenomenal person. I would really recommend you have Janine invited onto the podcast.
okay. Now, part of when you recommend somebody, you got to help us get them.
I hope you get them. Okay, no problem. I will connect you via email,
Okay.
and then you're gonna have to wine her and dine her from there.
Oh, I'm pretty good at that.
Oh, watch out, watch out.
I'm pretty good at that. That's my thing.
Okay, so that's not a
Not from
problem.
that perspective,
Excellent.
but just from a business perspective. I want to clean that up.
That up, and it's from a business
It's
perspective. You
from
can
a
wine and
business
dine. I
perspective, not
understand.
from anything else.
Absolutely.
From strictly a
Absolutely.
business perspective.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. No,
Okay.
she would be great. We were kind of sitting with our jaws open as she was talking about the experience of, a Black engineer finishing school and then trying to get a job and being placed in some rural part of America where on their way to work, they're stopped by the police 3 times because they're the only minority that they're seeing on the roadway. And I mean, there's nowhere for them to get their hair cut. I mean, these are real issues that are being faced. And then we ask, why can't we have minorities entering and staying in this industry? We have got to really understand the perspective of these persons. We have to understand those perspectives. Then we can act upon them and hopefully make a change so that we not only attract people, but have them stay in this industry and thrive.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you for coming on here. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you,
Very
Stefan.
engaging, but I knew you were going to be very engaging.
Oh,
I knew that. And to my listeners, we want you to don't forget to like, comment, share. Even if you don't like the podcast, you don't like me, still share it. Just don't like. Okay.
Tell people, do you see this crazy stuff going on? Let me share it with you.
Just like it. Help a brother out. Come on. We want you to visit our website, which is the $1 Million Business Podcast, for upcoming shows and upcoming updates. We thank you for all tuning in. Once again, I'm your host, Stefan Montgomery, and you have experienced the $1 Million Business Podcast.
I hope you enjoyed the show today. The information we discussed today was just that, information only. It is not specific advice. If you take action following something you heard today, it is important to make sure you get professional advice about your unique situation before you proceed. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or if there's another topic you would like to see explored. And if you know someone who might benefit from the show, remember to tell them about us. You can find the $1 Million Business Podcast on all podcast platforms or our visual podcast on YouTube. Thank you for viewing and listening.